So glad I thought of that. Okay. In the 6th year, in the 6th month, on the 5th day of the month, as I sat in my house with the elders of Judah sitting before me, the hand of the Lord God fell upon me there. Then I looked, and behold, a form that had the appearance of a man. Below what appeared to be his waist was fire, and above his waist was something like the appearance of brightness, like gleaming metal. He put out the form of a hand and took me by a lock of my head, and the Spirit lifted me up between earth and heaven, and brought me in visions of God to Jerusalem, to the entrance of the gateway of the inner court that faces north, where was the seat of the image of jealousy, which provokes to jealousy. And behold, the glory of the God of Israel was there, like the vision that I saw in the valley. So this is the best part of the whole chapter, where we see a vision of God just like he saw it in the first chapter. When you're just reading through the Bible and you run into dates and times and stuff like that, they don't really stand out and have a lot of meaning so much. But when you're studying and you can put this date with that date and it tells you something, then you see the benefit of it. So in chapter 1, his first vision was on the 5th day of the month, and it was the 5th year of the exile of King Jehoiachin. And here we have the 6th year on the 5th day of the 6th month. So it just tells us that this is like 14 months after his first vision. So he's been sitting there for a while. He's been laying on his side for a while. We know that it's different from, a while after his first vision, because now he's sitting, he's not laying. He says, I was sitting as I sat in my house with the elders. And then also this form took him by a lock of his hair, so his hair had grown out. Remember, he had shaved his head with a sword. So he's had enough time for his hair to grow back. But anyway, the elders are sitting with him in his house. They came to him. He didn't go out to them. He hasn't been released by God to do that. So this begins a whole new segment in his ministry. Says that the hand of the Lord fell on me there. He felt it. He felt the power of God, the hand of the Lord. And then he saw it. He saw a form, a likeness of a man. He was not a man, but he had the appearance of a man. From the waist down, it's very similar to what he said in the first chapter. And so I do want to I want us to remember this visual that Ezekiel's given us of the Lord. And as we go through, remember because we're not going to hear him literally, but we can visualize what Ezekiel had seen. So we're going to keep this vision fresh. So tell me, without going back and looking, between this verse and the first, what is God? What is the appearance of the Lord, the glory of the Lord? What does that look like? Remember? Can't hear you, Sherry.
I'm thinking about the burning bush, something that burns but it's not consumed.
Same kind of thing.
Same sort of thing here as a man with fire from the waist down.
Right, fire, brightness.
And then a brightness from the waist up. So, sort of like the burning bush. I mean, he has fire, but he's not consumed, and there's a brightness because of the fire.
And he talks about a bronze. Remember in the first chapter, there was like the center of the being, whatever he was seeing, the center of the glory had a metallic glow, and it was like, it was like the center of his being was glowing also, um, as though it were gleaming metal. It says in verses 26 and 27 of the first chapter, and above the expanse over their heads there was the likeness of a throne, in appearance like sapphire, and seated above the likeness of a throne was a likeness with a human appearance. And upward from what had the appearance of his waist, I saw as it were gleaming metal, like the appearance of fire, enclosed all around. And downward from what had the appearance of his waist, I saw as it were the appearance of fire, and there was brightness around him. So we have this, and I think he describes his voice a little bit, and I mean, we just have this great, always go back to the first chapter and visualize, see who this is. Who is this God that is coming against his people? He's powerful. He's pure. There's a lot of words to define him. So I don't want to overlook that. But can you just see this a form of a hand taking Ezekiel by the hair and lifting him up between the heaven and between the earth and heaven, I think it says, between earth and heaven. So it's a place. He took him to a place, a spiritual place. It makes me think of a Google Maps, only with real-time pictures, zooming out. He's brought him above the earth, between the earth and the heaven, to see what's going on earth.
Nan.
Yes.
That just makes me think of way back when there used to be a group of religious people. They wore white and they had a lock of hair on the top of their head, and they used to ask for donations.
Oh, wow.
They used to go around. They used to be all over the place. You don't see them anymore.
Do you remember their name?
I can't remember the name of them, but it was some sort of Asian type of religious practice. And they believed that they would be jerked up by their hair and taken into heaven.
What? Wow. Would you say, Sue?
Hare Krishnas, I think is what she's describing.
Was it
Yes.
Hare Krishna? Okay,
Yes.
I do remember those. Okay. Yeah.
Yes, and they used to be all around here. They used to be at the airport.
I remember them at the airport, yeah.
In different places like that. They were asking for donations.
Yeah.
Is what I remember.
Yeah.
And nobody stopped them, so it must have been okay back in those days.
Yeah. Yeah.
A lot has changed.
Yes. Yeah. So so we're going to see the contrast of a holy God and a wicked people. Just as we're going through the rest of this chapter, we're going to really see wickedness. But don't forget who's looking at it. God, this holy God, has brought Ezekiel to see what he's seeing. They go to the entrance of the gateway to the inner court that faces north. And there was a seat of the image of jealousy, an idol. So I have up here on my wall, but I can't zoom in. I wish I could zoom in. But anyway, it is the temple. So if you have a temple in your Bible, or if you have for the next 4 weeks, it'd be great to have a diagram of a temple where you can look at things. I have this a little bit closer. There was a seat. It talks about, let's see where I am, because sometimes, okay, in verse, okay, it says that the glory of Israel was there. So just like what he had seen in chapter 1, the glory of the Lord was there. And it was outside of the Holy of Holies here. It was in, where's my, and behold, okay, so he goes to the entrance of the gateway to the inner court that faces north, where the seat of the image of jealousy was there, and the glory of God was there. So there, the gate that faces north, here's the north gate, and there was an image, somewhere in this area of the God that the idol that provokes jealousy. An idol, okay? And I think we can get into minute details, but the fact is there's an idol there. So, and also the glory of the Lord was there. So you've got both of them, and there wasn't room for both of the idol and God. So one of them has to go, right? You can't. They're not both going to be there. So what we find out is God's glory is going to depart. The idol will remain. The dead false god next to the living and true God, and they choose the false over the true. And this is why he's jealous. Verse 5 says, "Then he said to me, Son of man, lift up your eyes toward the north. So I lifted up my eyes toward the north, and behold, north of the altar gate," the altar gate, and where am I? Here's the altar right over here. So north of the altar gate, in the entrance, was the image of jealousy. And he said to me, Son of man, do you see what they are doing? The great abominations that the house of Israel are committing here, to drive me far from my sanctuary? But you will see still greater abominations. So already he's walked in and he's seen this idol that I'm sure that we could study and find out exactly whatever there is to know about that particular idol. But this is an idol that causes him to be jealous. And he says, they're doing this to drive me out of my sanctuary. Jeremiah 7:30 says, For the sons of Judah have done evil in my sight, declares the Lord. They have set their detestable things in the house that is called by my name to defile it. And if you go to the New Testament, it just reminds me of Jesus cleansing the temple when he went in, and just the things that were done. It was a different temple, but the things that were done in God's temple, it's a serious matter. It says in verse 7, And he brought me to the entrance of the court, and when I looked, behold, there was a hole in the wall. So, okay. So in the temple, these are little rooms around the temple that, like, I don't know, where offices or little dwelling places for the priests or whatever, but there's little rooms all the way around the temple, and he saw a hole in the wall of one of, going into this temple, or one of those places. So he goes to the entrance of the court. He brought me to the entrance of the court. The entrance of the court points to the northern gateway between the outer and the inner courts of Solomon's temple. The inner court of the temple was a restricted sacred area where all the priestly duties were done, where the sacrifices were brought, the burning incense. They burnt incense there. They maintained the showbread table. They offered sacrifices. It was like a transitional place between the public outer court and the Holy of Holies. Or the holy place anyway. It was not for just common men to come and walk around and stuff. It was a place of the ritual sacrifices and stuff. So then he said to me, Son of man, dig in the wall. So I dug in the wall, and behold, there was an entrance. And he said to me, Go in and see the vile abominations that they are committing here. As if the abominations weren't bad enough. Here, now they're classified as vile. So God has Ezekiel uncover what Judah's leadership is attempting to hide. We see a physical breach that allows Ezekiel to peer into the forbidden chambers. That's what they're called, chambers. Where the priests and the prophets were practicing their sin in secret, so they thought. And then we also see a spiritual breach because they broke the covenant with their idolatry. Proverbs 15:3 says, the eyes of the Lord are in every place, keeping watch on the evil and the good. And so the Lord is showing Ezekiel the abominations he's been seeing all along. God's been watching. He's seen everything. And now Ezekiel is looking at it. So verse 10, so I went in and saw, and there, engraved on the wall all around, was every form of creeping things and loathsome beasts, and all the idols of the house of Israel. And before them stood 70 men of the elders of the house of Israel, with Jezaniah the son of Shaphan standing among them. Each had his censer in his hand, and the smoke of the cloud of incense went up. And then he said to me, Son of man, have you seen what the elders of the house of Israel are doing in the dark, each in his room of pictures? For they say, the Lord does not see us. The Lord has forsaken the land. So Shaphan, this Jezaniah was there with these elders. He was the son of Shaphan. If you remember when we were in the book of Jeremiah, Shaphan was one of the, he was Jeremiah's scribe. Well, he was actually Josiah's scribe, the one who found the book of the law. Shaphan was, found the book of the law and gave it to Josiah, and he also was supportive of Jeremiah. Now we see his son here among these wicked leaders doing wicked things. So you can see how one generation isn't going to be always doing the same thing as the previous generation. But he did have other sons. Shaphan had other sons that were godly, but he was the black sheep, and he was there with these wicked elders. So let's look at the engravings on the wall. Verses I always, when I have verses to go back to, it's because they come to my mind while I'm studying it, and so they're all familiar to me, and they're probably familiar to you too. But in Exodus 20, in the Ten Commandments, verses 4 and 5 says, you shall not make for yourself a carved image or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. You shall not bow down to them or serve them, for I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God. And again in Deuteronomy chapter 4, 16 to 18 says, beware, lest you act corruptly by making a carved image for yourselves in the form of any figure, the likeness of male or female, the likeness of any animal that is on the earth, the likeness of any winged bird that flies in the air, the likeness of anything that creeps on the ground, the likeness of any fish that is in the water under the earth. So they've been told not to do this. And then here we have 70. That's a lot of guys. 70 elders in of the house of Israel standing before these carvings with their censers, offering prayers. That's what this smoke and this is. It's prayers to their idols. I can't help to see the contrast with the 70 elders that Moses chose to take up to Mount Sinai with him when they went to get the Ten Commandments. So in the Old, this is the elders. Let's talk about elders for a minute. In the Old Testament, elders they governed local affairs, they administered justice, and they guided spiritual life. So do you remember the thought of them sitting at the gates where people would come up to them to have their dispute settled or get wisdom from them or something like that. You always picture them just sitting there waiting for people to come and ask them for advice. But they were advisors, judges, mediators, and they led people according to God's law. Their advice and judgments and everything were based on God's law. So here we have them burning incense, okay? And talk about incense for a minute. When God brought the incense into the temple rituals, whatever you want to say, he gave a specific formula for what to burn, what the ingredients to put into that, so that it would be the right smell. And those that incense that God prescribed to be burnt was not to be burnt anywhere else. It was specific ingredients for this purpose, and you don't use this combination for any other reason. So the incense that God wanted was specific, and it was in the temple. It was what he prescribed for the temple worship, right? So here he said, let me see if there's anything else in it. Yeah. It was to honor God. A sweet-smelling substance that was burned as an offering to God on the altar in the tabernacle in the temple. So then he said to me, Son of man, dig in the wall. So I dug in the wall, and behold, there was an entrance. And he said to me, Go in and see the vile abominations that they are committing here. Oh, I already read that. How did I get... I did that page twice? Oh, well. Okay. Okay. No, I did. One moment.
That's how he could see he could look in at the ones in the dark, doing what they were worshiping, the images.
Yes.
The 70 elders. It's like a little porch that separates it from, go inside the temple, there's like a little alcove, or we would call it, what do you call it, foyer.
Yes.
Before you get into the inner court. And there is where he's found the little hole and started digging.
Yep. And he's looking in to these chambers around there. He's seeing what's in there. I mean, let me find my place. That's not it. Okay.
It does seem like a lesson on, in the dark. God still sees it.
Yes. We can't hide.
Right.
And
yeah, but they thought that they could, because, I mean, they're treating God like he doesn't even exist.
Right. Well, they say he doesn't see us. Right. He's not here.
Yeah, he don't see us. He don't hear us. He doesn't care about us.
Mm-hmm.
And really, it's the other way around. They don't see him, they don't hear him, and they don't see him.
Right.
Because of their idolatry.
Right. Yep. I have somebody very dear to me who has voiced that she doesn't think God hears her prayers, or she doesn't think God is with her. But trying to get her to understand that it's because she's the one who moved, not him. That she's doing something that she shouldn't be doing. And so recognizing that she doesn't think God hears her is a good thing, because, you're not going to be all buddy-buddy with God while you're sinning, So this chapter reminds me a lot of her situation, but a little bit. And according to the law, only priests that were descended from Aaron could offer incense. Anyway, here's the elders, not the priests. The elders are offering incense to their images and to their idols in their own room, each in his room, it says. When Solomon built the temple, God told him to carve things in the temple. But the things that God told Solomon to carve was cherubim, palm trees, and flowers. Not these things, and of course not these creepy things and crawling things and everything that they're worshiping. And those things were carved inside the temple, inside the holy place in the Holy of Holies, the holy place, in the most holy place. But saying that God doesn't see us, one person said they were seeking to rationalize and justify their sin. When you forget God is omniscient and holy, it becomes easy to rationalize your sin. The elders felt that what they did in their darkened chambers would escape God's notice. Their feeling that God had forsaken them reminds one of the saying, when you don't feel close to God, guess who moved? My point with my loved one. He said to me also, you will see still greater abominations that they commit. Whew. Then he brought me to the entrance of the north gate of the house of the Lord, and behold, there sat women weeping for Tammuz. I call it Tammuz. I don't know how to say it otherwise. So then we have, here's a little diagram. You got these people, you got an idol, and you got these women weeping for this god. Tammuz, it was the Babylonian god of nature. And they depicted her as dying in the scorching heat of the summer. At the end of the summer, she would die, and she kind of lay dormant until springtime, and she'd come back to life, and they would celebrate. So they mourned in the fall, and they celebrated her in the spring. So Ezekiel, this is in the temple. This is in the place that's supposed to be holy for sacrifices, for the priests to offer, for the good things to be happening, not even just the common people on the outer court. This is a sacred place, and here's these women worshiping, mourning for this god that's going to. She was the god of. The fertility of the land is probably the best way to say it. And then verse 15, then he said to me, have you seen this, O son of man? You will see still greater abominations than these. And he brought me into the inner court of the house of the Lord. So that was on the outer court. Now I'm lost. And he brought me into the inner court of the house of the Lord, and behold, at the entrance of the temple of the Lord, between the porch and the altar, were about 25 men with their backs to the temple of the Lord, and their faces toward the east, worshiping the sun toward the east. Most translations say that they were bowing down toward the east and worshiping the sun. So, Jeremiah spoke about them turning their backs on God. Jeremiah 2:26, as a thief is shamed when caught, so the house of Israel shall be shamed. They, their kings, their officials, their priests, and their prophets, who say to a tree, you are my father, and to a stone, you gave me birth. For they have turned their back to me, and not their face. But in the time of their trouble, they say, arise and save us. Here he's talking about they've turned their back on him. And here in Ezekiel, we see it literally. He describes it literally. So they stood in the entrance of the temple and worshiped the sun. Let's see, got another. This diagram. I love these diagrams. And they have little notes below that I'll try to scan it and send it to you if it might be helpful. But here you see all those 25 men representing the 25 men. Their back is toward the temple, and they're worshiping the sun. God clearly, I mean, you could just, my visual, which I'm not doing a really good at showing because you can't really see it back there, but my visual shows, it is in my mind just seeing God's temple and the courts and the stuff that he built to honor him, to worship him, and just seeing it being filled with all of this evil. And that's what God's describing, even worse than this. But he clearly he warned Moses about worshiping the sun. There's a lot of warnings about worshiping the sun. Deuteronomy 17, verses 1 to 3 says, if there is found among you within any of your towns that the Lord your God has given you, a man or woman who does what is evil in the sight of the Lord your God in transgressing his covenant, and has gone and served other gods and worshipped them, or the sun or the moon or any of the host of heaven, which I have forbidden, and it is told you, and you hear of it, then you shall inquire diligently. And if it is true and certain that such an abomination has been done in Israel, then you shall bring out to your gates that man or woman who has done this evil thing, and you shall stone that man or woman to death with stones. Obviously, they didn't do that, because here we have the leaders, the elders, doing the same thing that people should have been stoned for according to the law. And so they did it anyway. In 2 Kings chapter 21, King Manasseh built altars for all the host of heaven, including sun worship practicing. And then in 2 Kings 23, a couple chapters later, King Josiah removed the priests who burnt the incense to the sun, the moon, the constellations, and all the host of heavens. So, I mean, just all through time they're doing it. Jeremiah 8 mentions that the leaders and people worship the sun, moon, and stars. He says, verse 2, at that time, declares the Lord, the bones of the kings of Judah, the bones of its officials, the bones of the priests, the bones of the prophets, and the bones of the inhabitants of Jerusalem shall be brought out of their tombs, and they shall be spread before the sun and the moon and all the host of heaven, which they have loved and served, which they have gone after, and which they have sought and worshipped. And they shall not be gathered or buried. They shall be as dung on the surface of the ground. Death shall be preferred to life by all the remnant that remains of this evil family, and all the places where I have driven them, declares the Lord of hosts. So we see, I mean, it's almost, you're sitting here, I'm sitting here saying, why would they worship something like that? You know, why would they do that when they were told not to? And they've got a holy God who presents himself right to them, gives them a place to go in and worship, you know, a powerful, holy God, but instead they would worship the sun. Well, in that day and this day too, the sun, it was the sun that brought each new day. You know, the sun rises and you have a new day. The sun warmed the earth. The sun brought the end of winter and the right conditions for growing food. You have more sun in the springtime. It was the largest object in the sky. Its brightness was overpowering. Its heat could destroy. And in the ancient world, it was the most powerful object known to man. So the sun was worshipped by all the nations surrounding Israel, but it was forbidden to Israel. Israel was forbidden to it. In first part of Genesis tells us that God created the sun. They should know this. God created the sun. Why are you worshiping something that God created instead of the Creator? Deuteronomy 4:19. And beware lest you raise your eyes to heaven, and when you see the sun and the moon and the stars, all the host of heaven, you will be drawn away and bow down to them and serve them, things that the Lord your God has allotted to all the people under the new heaven, under the whole heaven. So when we look at the incredible power and brilliance of the sun, we see it too. Our first response should be to worship the one who created it. It's an amazing object. We need it. We love it. We like everything that they worshipped about it. We like those aspects of the sun, but we worship God for creating it. Can you imagine life without the sun? There would be no life without the sun. But so again, it takes you to Romans 1:18 to 21. For the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness. I mean, I just think about these elders when I'm reading it. Against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men, who by their unrighteousness suppress the truth. They knew the truth. They should have known the truth. For what can be known about God is plain to them, because God has shown it to them. For his invisible attributes, namely his eternal power and divine nature, have been clearly perceived ever since the creation of the world and the things that have been made. His eternal power and divine nature has been clearly perceived in the Son and everything that he's made. So they are without excuse, for although they knew God, they did not honor him as God or give thanks to him, but they became futile in their thinking, and their foolish hearts were darkened. So we see nothing changes.
Nan,
Yes.
does your Bible call the 25 elders or just men?
Men, let's see.
Mine says 25 men standing with their backs to the temple of the Lord, facing east, worshiping the sun.
Yeah, it does say 25 men.
Well, a commentary I read said they were actually priests.
Yeah.
And there was 24 priests that were in charge of different duties at a time, and then the one high priest.
Oh, okay.
So that makes 25.
Okay. Yep.
So that's what it's alluding to. Is
So,
that that's what makes it a greater abomination, that they were the priest and they weren't even hiding it.
yeah.
They were out in the open,
Yeah.
and they were doing where they should have been blessing the people. Like, I mean, that was their morning ritual, was to bless the people.
Mm-hmm.
They were worshiping the sun instead. So.
Yes. I'm going to have to... Do you have a reference to that? Now, I can look it up if I need to, but
I got it from Enduring Word commentary.
Okay.
On this chapter.
Okay. Because I want to make sure I add that to my notes when I'm teaching it on Sunday.
Yeah, one of the people, you know how he's got different people that he
quotes, yeah,
uses their ideas from. One of those people, I don't remember who it was, actually said that they were 25 priests.
Well, I'll go back in probably Leviticus that tells how gives the numbers and the duties and stuff like that. I can probably back that up with that. Thank you.
It says it's because they were where they normally stand to bless people. They were in the area the priests would be.
Okay. So, my notes say that the last line of defense for a nation is the priest, who were to teach the people the word of God. The people depended on the priest to know what God's word said. They didn't all have Bibles, right? So God's word was revealed to them through the written law of Moses and the temple system of worship. The hope for the people was that the priest would teach them the truth. But the priests were standing between the altar and the portico of the temple with their backs toward the temple, worshiping the rising sun. So their hope was lost. Their last hope was lost there. I mean, and we can shake our head at it, right?
Oh, man.
I'm sure by the time we get done, we're going to see ourselves in every piece of this. We're gonna see just little nuggets of, I'm not going to stand in the doorway and worship, but there are things we worship. Verse 17. Then he said to me, "Have you seen this, O son of man? Is it too light a thing for the house of Judah to commit the abominations that they commit here? That they should fill the land with violence and provoke me still further to anger? Behold, they put the branch to their nose." Can you imagine God's heart as he's watching this? When he talk about putting the branch to their nose, there's a lot of different ideas. Different people have different ideas about what this means, and I read a bunch of them, and some of them kind of made sense, and some of them didn't, but there's not anything else in Scripture really that would indicate what that means. But basically, they were insulting God. They put the branch to their nose. It was like maybe snubbing him, or I don't know. He says, "Therefore I will act in my wrath. My eye will not spare, nor will I have pity. And though they cry in my ears with a loud voice, I will not hear them." So that's what you get when you ignore God, make him angry, and all that. He says, they can shout all they want, but I'm not going to hear them. I'm not listening. Proverbs 5:22 says, "The iniquities of the wicked ensnare them, and he is held fast in the cords of his sin." So, just beware. Even simple sin, big sin, whatever it is, if you allow yourself to get tangled up in sin, it's going to be a snare. Each person is tempted when he is lured and enticed by his own desire. Then desire, when it has conceived, gives birth to sin. And sin, when it is fully grown, brings forth death. That's James 1:14 and 15. Just to make it personal, just, ask God, search me and know me, and tell me if there's any sinful way in me. Tell me if there's any hurtful way in me. Show me my sin. That's, as I've studied this week, I'm like, I know I have sin. And he has shown me. There's just something going on that would my flesh wants to discuss it with people. But it's I don't know how to discuss it without it being gossipy. So I'm studying this, and I'm praying for because he's saying, be quiet. Don't you don't need to work it out with them. And somebody sent me a video like Monday or Tuesday of a sermon that is all about talking, and when basically talk to God about it. I don't need to discuss it with everybody else who does not know the inside out. Because there's feelings and ideas and thoughts involved with what's going on, and I can talk to God about all of it, and he can give me better answers than they can. We don't need to discuss things that we shouldn't discuss, if that makes any sense, because I'm not giving you the entire picture. But he answered my prayer. I'm like, show me my sin. And I knew I had been told and convicted about discussing this matter with other people. But I needed to get it. I needed to work it out. I needed to get it worked out. And this sermon was the best ever. It was probably good for anybody that has something they don't need to talk about, but was just so good with scriptures and everything else, explaining to me why I need to only talk to God about it. I don't need to work it out with anybody else. So anyway, I guess that's pretty simple. I could have walked right into that and messed everything up, because if you start talking as innocently as it may seem, you could step, it's hard to talk about something without putting somebody else down, or else, imagining or saying something that's just your thoughts, your ideas, that might not even be true. So, anyway, back just to this God's Proverbs chapter 1, 22 to 33 gives Solomon has to be speaking for God in this, because it just relates a lot to what we're studying. He says, "How long, O simple ones, will you love being simple? How long will scoffers delight in their scoffing, and fools hate knowledge? If you turn at my reproof, behold, I will pour out my spirit to you. I will make my words known to you. Because I have called and you refuse to listen, have stretched out my hand and no one has heeded, because you have ignored all my counsel and would have none of my reproof, I also will laugh at your calamity. I will mock when terror strikes you. When terror strikes you like a storm, and your calamity comes like a whirlwind, when distress and anguish come upon you, then they will call upon me, but I will not answer. They will seek me diligently, but will not find me, because they hated knowledge and did not choose the fear of the Lord, would have none of my counsel, and despised all of my reproof. Therefore they shall eat the fruit of their way, and have their fill of their own devices. For the simple are killed by the turning away, and the complacency of fools destroys them. But whoever listens to me will dwell secure and will be at ease without dread of disaster. I don't know. There's so much warning in there, and I don't know. This chapter just gives you the sense of sin, what it is, and how God sees it. Look forward to the next chapter.
Yeah. The end of this chapter just reminds me of a parent having to do tough love. I mean, it's not like on the level with God and Judah, but to me it's similar.
Yeah.
And I mean, even so, God, it says that God didn't see them, he didn't hear them.
Yeah.
But he did.
Oh, he
did see them. He did hear them.
Mm-hmm.
But he knew what he had to do, just like in tough love. You see your child, you hear your child, but you have to do tough love sometimes.
Yeah.
And it's not easy. Yeah. So, and I don't think it was easy for him either.
Oh,
I mean,
no.
I think he suffered as much as they did, practically. Because you suffer for your child. When they suffer, you suffer.
And you can tie that directly to the cross.
Exactly.
His suffering, we see some of what that was on the cross.
Yes. But that just popped into my head as we were reading that, that, hey, that reminds me of tough love.
Mm-hmm.
And what a parent has to do in tough love.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And he probably has to use that with us all the time.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Even still, God didn't answer my prayer. Well, stop what you're doing and then come back.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're just children who need to be guided. So.
Till the day we die.
Yep. Well, I'm finished with my scattered notes. I don't even know how they got so. I'm going to have to just print the whole thing over in one piece. But, does anybody have anything to add?
So I was thinking about, I got so stuck on, I think it was verses 14 and 15 where the women were in the corner.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just thinking about how, as women, maybe not even as women, but me personally, I put in so much emotional energy into I don't know how to explain it, but it just seemed like they were putting in all this emotional energy into this false source of hope.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I do that. I put in all this emotional work or want into all these sources of false, I don't know, thinking that it's going to work, or thinking that that's where I'm gonna get relief, or I don't know. And if I would just go to God
Mm-hmm.
in the
I'm adding that to my notes too. Good point.
and if it, like, when it comes to grief or frustration, or I mean, I know they were praying to, like, their fertility god or whatever, but really, like, it's everything. It's anything. Like, when I don't know, when I'm lonely, when I'm scared, when I'm angry, when I'm resentful, when I'm like, I go to anything and everything or anyone other than God first when I'm emotional.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's like my immediate, like, because it's right there in front of me. Like, I haven't learned. I know to go to God first, but I often, like I'll call my best friend, or I'll call my mom, or I'll run to them first because they're right there.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't work.
No. Good points. 9 a.m. Okay. Go say more if you want.
Well, then I was also just thinking about this idea of the progression of sin and how it starts so subtle, and then it becomes hidden, like, and it's layers of hidden. So I was thinking about the temple, like the vision of the temple and all these rooms, right? So it starts subtle, and then it becomes hidden, and then it becomes normalized,
Yeah.
and then it becomes worship. And so I was just, I don't know. This is a good chapter.
I will add that to my notes too.
Okay.
Look into that. Thank you. I appreciate your comments. Okay, it's 9 o'clock. I'm going to let everybody go about their business and their day, and it was good to have you, Shannon, and everybody else. Misty, go ahead.
Praying for you, Sherry.
Thank you. Bye, y'all.
All right.
I was just saying bye. Sorry.
Okay, that's good. That's fine.
Love you guys. Bye.
All right. See ya. Good to see your face. Okay.
Hey, did you get to talk to Leslie?
I didn't, because
Okay.
I got sidetracked and forgot. But I did think about them on my drive home.
She's not here, so I was wondering.
No, she wasn't going to be here this week. Next week we're not meeting. I need to make a note to that. Whoops, wait a minute. I always hate when I forget